Okay, let's have something new in the way we discuss about the research. We have already gone through all the research details in the way we design the research, the way we look at the reality, the data's interactions between the data's and the theories, the validity perspective, the things that we do has to be valid. And we talk about different perspective of validities in terms of qualitative and also the qualitative, and also the reliabilities, generalizations. It is really similar to operations management. When we operate a business, operate the productions processes, we need to produce a valid product, things that conforms to the expectation, right, of your requirements of customers, and when you produce it, you got to do it in a very reliable way, and that is the reliability all about, and the precisions, right? The Six Sigmas. So that means that you have to go to pilot testings. You have to really, discussing it, quality control it. Meanings you have to go through literature reviews, ensuring that what you're measuring really reflect the exact meanings, right? And that is so it's not very difficult. The research and the practical words are, like operations and productions are really basically the same thing. And generalizations means that things that you think that you say it's gonna work, you say that your product is reliable and valid, that it can sell to a lot of people. That's called generalization. And so there is not much detail about it. And the research design is just how we gonna design a process in such a way that we can get some data, right? Or we can get some information, theoretical information, so that we can address our issue step by steps, right? It could be ethnographic observations, it could be case studies, it could be grounded theories, it could be action research that trying to solve the problems in the factories or in a real world environments, and then simultaneously add on some knowledge, or you can do some experiments, control experimental group, and see the differences between your dependent variables as a result of interventions and some control things. And so it's really practical things, right? Research. So today, I just want to show you, without looking into all these theoretical things and preparations. I just want to interact with you in a short time, and just give you a couple of ideas, and directly from the papers, that people has presented. So in a way, it serves couple of purpose. In a way, it serves the purpose of the understanding what are the requirements in a typical research writing and typical research efforts, and and also address some of the important provocations issues and things that you need to consider, things that you need to pay attention to, such as we have talked about it in what you need to be included in the introduction. Just like you introduce the packages to the customers, and you really need to tell people, get people interest, right? And so in research, you really need to get people interest. People are looking, people when they read your articles, they are looking for some similar things, right? They have some problems and they want you. They hope that your papers can demonstrate some similar things that can give some ideas how they can solve problem, and that is introduction is all about. And so literature review is they want to know the in-depth knowledge that you go through the reading, and be able to synthesize and summarize it systematically, organize it in terms of some structural form. We call it theoretical forms or models or framework, whatever. And they also want to know how you collect the data. They also want to know how you analyze the data, and they also want to know what is going on after the data. So that is called discussions and results, right? So let's look into some of the systematic business social research. Apart from understanding the research, you can learn a lot of things from, just a simple discussions, a free discussion. That you also learned a lot of things from this research. So I do not want you to just learn about research. I want you to also learn about competencies, business competency. What are the differences between competencies and competence, or is there any difference? Capabilities, capability-based views, competency-based theory, industry structures, maybe socio-technological issue, and leadership theories and so on. So you can learn competitive strategy theories. So you can learn a lot of other things apart from this research. So, for example, if you look into this articles, which is talking about research design canvas, which I have given uh, the discussions before. It being a canvas. So I mean, you look at this paper. Being a canvas, the title is very important, right? So being a researcher, you want to have a title that attract people. So if you look into this title, this canvas. I mean, canvas means something very straightforward, that we can look at it in one page, or maybe we can paint the paintings, and this is like brain papers that we can paint, and so it gives us a very quick narrations of what is going on. So just like business model canvas, it tells us the structures of business activities, key business activity organizations that are capable to make things, get things done through the value that you think that will attract the customers. So if you look at these things, when you read the papers, we also, not only the title, we also we need to read the extract to see exactly what is being provided in this article. And also by reading, I want to point out that you need to learn how people write extract. What are the latter, well, if some of the journals, they give you a very systematic outline of what you're going to do with what you need to do, what you need to provide with the extracts, right? You need to provide a background, you need to provide your limitation, you need to provide your key contributions area, you need to provide how you solve the problems, methodologies, or you need to provide your discussions in a short sense. So in a 200 words, according to those data. Anyway, extract, it's just giving you that it tell me what kind of problem you solve and how you deal with it, right? In a way that that this is different from other people that I have not been able to read properly, and that's the worth of this paper. So if you look into that extract, designing a top quality research study is a complex challenge. So the articles start to talk about the background, right? They start to tell you, this is the product, right? Okay. So design a top quality research is really a complex challenge. Oh, interesting. We all want to, look into. We all are into research, and we know that it's very difficult sometimes, especially for the students and some of the novice. And so, oh, interesting. Maybe I should look into the detail, right? So we introduce, they are introducing something. So they give a very quick background, and we introduce the research design canvas as a tool. Okay, that's something new. Research canvas is something new, and to help researchers, maybe it's me too, and to manage this complexity and create better studies. Okay, well, that's good. And completing a research design canvas requires researchers to a priori articulate one or more. So this is really nothing but telling all the stories and components of this. Okay, you can read it by yourself. So this basically is just the background and what they're doing it. Okay, and so this is a very straightforward There are a lot of ways to write the extract. This is just a straightforward to writing. And at the end, by doing so, scholars will be able to improve the chances of define the high rejections rate so they can get published. Okay, the last sentence is pretty much a closure to whatever things they intend to do, right? And which is the closures. I mean, every sentences you need to opening and closure, and a typical closures could be contributions and implications and right things like that. And then after that, you provide some of the keywords. Of course, it got to be some canvas, but it doesn't seem to have a canvas on the keywords. So that is fine. Maybe they are focusing on the contents, key contents, keywords, which deals with research design. So you can see that there is definitely a design perspective, and there are focusing also stressing on a very important thing, which is the theory and other components, just like business model, right? And so these are the typical research design canvas. You can refer back to this article, and I modified it to be more adaptable, kind of to students, business, social research or whatever. So I kind of a little bit of adaptation, but basically it's almost the same. So the research titles is very important. The title, just like I have explained it to you, things that attract, things that is impactful, things that is making sense, things that is worthwhile, right? Especially if you're at PhD level, then your title has to really, beyond some trivial things, right? Research objective and research question is very important. A lot we have talked about it, the research objectives, and there are a lot of research objectives and purpose statement, whether for qualitative, for quantitative, for different types of qualitative case studies, grounded methods, or mixed methods, or whatever, and different types of things you have to practice how to read all those papers to see how you really understand how to put up the research objective statements, which is very, very important, because if you do not know, if people read your article and find that your article has no research objective, then the chances are there's no direction. So objective is it's a very important issue, and which is in introduction. So after you're describing your background, your objective is to introduce research canvas that as a tool, right? And that is objective. Okay, so they are very obvious already in the research in the extract. So you can also have that in your objective in your extract or in your introduction. But before you go into your purpose, you gotta tell the story, right? The background, the landscaping of your situation, so that it can bring people to the objective. Once you have that objective, your mission is to get the research done, and then once you get that objective, the MOXT, right? MOXT. If you're in business, so management, the most framework, MOXT, mission, objective, strategy, tactics. So once you get into this, your mission is to accomplish certain things, and you have a very clear objective with that, and then how you to realize that objective, and that is the strategy with the design, a strategy. And within that strategy, the design, there are a lot of tactics that you can do in order to code, right? To do the coding of your quantitative data. Maybe you need to do some open coding of the text. You have the interviews and you transcribe it, and then you look at this looks like telling this code. This looks like telling these themes. This looks like telling about the leadership, and this looks like the transformational characteristics of leadership. This looks like transactional characteristics of leadership, and this looks like theory X. This looks like theory Y. So you kind of coding it, right? and then you organize those code and together, right? And to see the model, to build a theory, right? That transformation, maybe a belief in theory wise will allow you to be more transformational in leadership style, and then and bring about more innovations and participatory citizenship behavior of those employees. It really depends on how you look at the situation. I mean, your transcribed interview. So, so research objectives is very important. Since the objectives sometimes can be explored into research question. Exactly what is, in this kind of context is the things that you're looking at. Maybe some small and medium enterprises, or and in certain area that you're not familiar with, and not sufficient publications and things. So the context is pretty ambiguity, and so therefore you are looking into case studies, and you are not so sure about transformational in what sense. So therefore you already mentioned that you need to identify, the purpose of this research study is to identify, to see how, to draw the relationship between, or to see how transformational really played a role in blah 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 blah. But then what exactly are the natures of transformational theories, or how transformational theory takes shape, or blah blah blah. And those are research questions. You can, you just brainstorming, and you can come up with a lot of research questions that are meaningful, and you can have theoretical support and literature review supporting it. All these research questions and objectives can, before you come to that conclusions, you already have gap in the knowledge, right? You have already read the literature review, you know the gaps, what kind of things are not available, and therefore you need to address them. It could be theoretical gap, it could be practical gap, it could be empirical gap, it could be methodological gap, it could be cross-disciplinary gap, it could be whatever. Okay, and so within that literature review, a very strong one, though not necessary, but a strong one. Usually, you already have some theoretical background with these meetings. There is a structures of concepts going on in your field, and you are able to organize it. But bear in mind, we have different level of theories, and we have mid-range theories all the way to grand theory. It is impossible to have the, that the theory is applicable to everything, right? Especially in social business environment. And so it tends to be at most maybe some contingencies or middle range, right? Mid-range theories that has certain boundary conditions or certain contextual situations involved to that explain the theoretical arguments. And so bring those issues up, right? Theories and boundary conditions of theory. And then within that theory, if within that theoretical situation, systemic situation, there are a lot of hypothetical details. So maybe you talk about there is a theory of stimulation that drive the organistic states of developments of the consumers, which induce the response. But then there are a lot of details hierarchically in both stimulation domain and also in organistic domain, or in the relational domains, and all this can be hypothetical structures coming into the picture. So you need to read a lot of literature review, put them into the perspective to argue for certain or deduce certain hypothetical structure. And and all these are just theoretical design. But then you need to go into your research design. How are you gonna, what kind of data you're gonna collect, right? And how are you gonna collect them? So research design need to evolve all the way to empirical realm, not the theoretical realm. Now you sort out the theoretical part on the left side. You need to move to the right side, which is the empirical part. So how are you going to, where are the samples, and how are you going to collect the data, describe them properly, and then how are you going to measure them? Are you going to measure them quantitatively? Are you going to measure them qualitatively? If you're going to measure them quantitatively, how are we going to do that? How are you going to ensure construct validity? How are you going to ensure content validity? How are you going to ensure convergence validity, divergent, discriminant validities, or simultaneous things or whatever? There's so many issues, reliability testings, things like that. And so once you sort of all these measurements, then you can start working on it. I can start working on your data analysis, including quality assessment, right? So you can start working on validity. Once you get the data, you have to analyze that whether your data are valid. So you have to make sure that there are whether quantitative or qualitative, present them in such a way that your data are reliable, that they're valid in what sense they are valid, right? And again, bear in mind that your research design also subjected to research paradigm. And the paradigmatic worldviews are very important because that is the things that constrain our thought process. So if you view, for example, if you view that, or you trust that the world is it's whatever reality that you're going to investigate is going to be influenced by the reality of by the concept, or by the shape, or by the nature of your mind. That means that the reality is interpreted by you, and that so the interpretative research paradigm would be your dominant worldview, and from that a series of interpretation oriented meanings, sense making, meaning oriented, to identify the sense making and meaning making of the participants, or the interviewees, or the informants, that inform you all this qualitative descriptions and issues. You need to really consider that. So they are really reflecting to your research paradigm. And if you consider positivistic, meaning that objectively out there the reality, and then of course you probably will go into experimentations, or measure it mechanistically, and using social business area to be using quantitative that you can have a relationship that is epistemological relationship that is very far away from the respondent. And because everything is treated statistically, right? But there's no need to go and interpret by your mind and your perception. And so, but make sure that you have that validities resolved in your measurement. Meaning minimize all these errors. It's not only the measurement, the validity issue. The errors caused by the measurements could be subjected to the way you design your questionnaire and the way you instrument, you administers your questionnaire and things like that. So it could, even the sampling could be the error that causes the problem, right? So all this kind of error minimization, so due to sampling or measurement or controllabilities or things that you can control, non-control, all kind of things you can figure it out, right? Slowly, right? It doesn't really need to look at it, study. You can, in details, you can really brainstorm to go to Google's or maybe, brainstorming and find out how to minimize those areas, those errors. And for every researchers, I already explained, there are always some limitations, whether the limitation in the sense of theoretical things, maybe limitation in the way of your cognition, maybe limitation in the way of your sampling, maybe limitation in the way of your approaching things and whatever. So whichever limitations that probably will have the possibility of causing some limitation in generalizations of your research, do address them, and also look into the timeline to finish it, and your target publications where you're gonna present, submit your presentations and things like that, and the students. And so these are the canvas, right? So in a one-page manner, just like business model, your theoretic, your top-down research, objective research question, the flow from theories all the way to empirical, but make sure that you know your research paradigm and that guides your data analysis, and all the way proceeds to limitations and your completion. So it's slight modifications of these papers, right, to give you some idea of top down and left to right from timeline. And look at this. This is just a quick understanding and chit chatting between you and me on using the this couple of research article that you can find in the database, and so we can share a good understanding of the contemporary trend and kind of some of the key focuses in business research methodology that probably are very important to you. And this paper is very interesting because it talks about, it kind of extend what I have just told you in terms of this research paradigm. So we are looking into different analytics paradigm. So those paradigm that has this computational analysis skill. Capability that guide the development and involvement of research methodology. And so let's look at how they write the extracts. Okay, I mean, we'll just look at it together. Okay, I just cut and paste, and I have not looked at it. And so the availability of data in massive collections in recent past not only has enabled data-driven. So this paper is trying to give you a background again, that we are moving into the big data era. Okay, so the availability of data, right? Availability of data in massive collections in recent past. So relatively recently, as we see these trends coming in, has enabled the data-driven decisions making, which is analytics, right? But also has created new questions that can be addressed effectively with the traditional statistical methods. So that cannot be addressed. So what we are trying to say, what they are trying to say is that this big data may have challenged some limitation in terms of statistical methods. So maybe we have to resolve to some computational, numerical, adaptive flexibility issues, and maybe need to use additional analytics rather than statistics. It could be artificial intelligence. It could be, it could be the optimizations that not a traditional optimization in a sense, but optimizations that is ability to be more fuzzy oriented, and the traditional scientific. So this is the background. And then they start to stress on it again. The traditional scientific research not only has prevented business scholars from working on emerging problems with because of this limitation, right? So we are not able to solve and target some of the research scholars like you, like me, maybe are not able to solve some of the problems that has big data. Okay, so the data is much bigger in scale, and maybe bigger, faster in speed too. But also has resulted in irrelevant theories and questionable conclusion, because as whichever way we do, we gotta our conclusions based on our methods. So because that this author is trying to demonstrate there is a limitations in methodology, therefore there will be also limitations in the conclusion. And so therefore there would be some weaknesses in terms of revealing some of the theories that may not happen, because we are constraining only on correlations and some simple regressions, and we think that this Michael Porter's business strategies are still okay if we do if we have this bargaining powers increase, we probably will have better ability to generate the profit. And I mean better opportunity to generate a profit, and therefore the industry is more attractive. And also we need to come up with some of the strategies that increase our bargaining power relative to somebody. And that kind of perspective is very much maybe in the smaller data set is probably a little bit more fun based, fun level driven, right? I'm looking at myself. The data is it's a small data, but then if we are moving ourselves beyond that self into non-self, right? In Thai we call anatta, so it's something that is big data anyway. And so sometimes this smaller statistical correlations and regressions are not able to, of course, they are very important, because even in big data, we need correlational patterns, right? To give us some ideas and synthesis on what's happening, so that we know the directions of how to resolve those fuzziness. But again, there's certain constraint, right? And so because of that, we may come up with some irrelevant theoretical conclusions. Maybe the digital trend has changed in such a way that instead of competitions-oriented theory, maybe we need to move into more embracing, not collaboration, but more embracing, right? More embracing. Anything's possible. So because of computerization, a lot, all kind of data that come into the picture, and because of that multi-sided platforms and business ecosystems start to come and emerge, and would completely change the behaviors of all the competition, right? So the authors therefore say in the extract, right? So we need to read the extract. Is it possible? Is it something we want that can help us solve some problem, right? And so they can see that has resulted in relevant theories, questionable conclusions, mostly because the traditional methods mainly focus on modeling and analysis, explanation. There are real practical problems, and the data, well, to some degree they are true, but to some another degree they're not, because the traditional method also looking into the practical. There are not only simulations and modeling. Simulations and modeling are just part of the one of the research method, right? But there are this is for engineering, maybe a lot of modeling and simulations. But then if you're moving into social business, we're solving practical and real problems. And so to some degree it's not true, but we don't need to argue, right? We continue to read, because there are some things that whether it's true or not true, is subjected to the peer review. So we do not need to, it's already done. And so we just want to see anything that we can pick it out. And we believe that lack of due attentions or analytical paradigms can blah, 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 blah. So, and therefore come to the conclusion, our purpose in this study, right, is in this paper is to illustrate how analytics as a complement rather than as a successor. So they know it's a complement, not a successor to the traditional research paradigm. So traditional research paradigm is still very much applicable, but then we need to complement it with this business analytics. Okay, I mean different types of analytical paradigmatic issue, and so that we can generate better conclusion, more relevant theoretical argument of something that's very relevant to us. So at least we want to know reading this data, and is this research is worthwhile to read? I'm sure, particularly very important for researchers in contemporary world, especially for PhD scholars. I mean, the PhD student. They have to be updated on what kind of analytical paradigms or research paradigms are into the trend today, and that needed to be able to solve today's problem. And so if you go a little bit further, and then, well, the introduction, they may tell you that the progress of, from the decision-making system that is very straightforward data utilizations and this, solve the problems and then make the decisions, 1970s, all the way to a little bit more bigger data like enterprise resource planning in businesses, that we collect data from suppliers, from, from our inventory productions and and customers and bankers and human resources and finance, and then integrate them for some decision making. And they are very straightforward decision making. Not necessarily. Sometimes you need to correlation. You can go to pivot. Well, the correlations will come out from pivoting. So you can use Excel and pivot. You can put into the database, like Oracle databases. They're very good in databases, and then you can extract these databases from Oracle Enterprise Resource Planning System, and then you can use their pivoting functions, or Excel also have that, and you can do some correlation and trend analysis and things like that. And from there, you can make a decision. So ERS, Enterprise Executed Information System. But then slowly moving into this 2000s, we are slowly to see some emerging business intelligence coming into the picture. We're seeing a lot of business intelligence coming into the pictures, and artificial intelligence, AI model, machine learning is starting to happen. And then slowly we getting very intense in this analytical big data analysis issues. And then we nowadays after 2010s, and maybe we are moving into the industry 5.0. So we are now, well, before industry 5.0, maybe we consolidate a period of consolidations that through sensors and, the machine sensors interacting with this computer models, and then interact and make decisions through some computerizations and model following and adaptive model controls and things like that, just like the flexible robotics model based intelligence control system. And then slowly, maybe after we get sort out those industry 4.0, then we move into more human oriented industry 5. Interacting with the machines, which is industry 5.0. So we are, in analytical speaking, these authors, the key conclusion is you can read by these papers, which sometimes I'm not gonna put a lot of things so that you foster you to read, to identify this paper and extract these papers and read it. And so you can see that as the complexity goes, the analytics paradigm changes and the methodological also changes, and therefore we need to move away from descriptive analytics, such as this is the shape of the data, and this is the how the normal distribution looks like, sigma, 2 sigma, 1 sigma, 3 sigma, and then slowly to diagnose, okay, well, there are certain correlational issues, there are certain negative correlational issue, there are certain things moving beyond the statistical process control line, and so we start to look into diagnostics. And then slowly we can, once we get consolidated with all this understanding and causal relationship, and then we slowly to be more predictive. And then with artificial intelligence, we can even prescribe prescriptive, right? We can do some computer simulation and then look into the future. And not only looking into the futures like prediction, we can look into the futures to suggest a path, a prescriptive, right? So we are looking into prescriptive paradigmatic. What should we do? So again, you can see that all this logical issue, you can and what kind of research methodologies and research methods, collections, and analysis, analytics that you need to move your these capabilities upward. So if you pose it and look carefully, this could be your competency for business in the digital era. And so, is your company still stuck in the descriptive analytics, or your diagnostics, or is your company capable of predicting things already, or is your company able to prescribe things? If your company is stuck in which one, maybe your competency is just lower end competency. So, so we read the papers. Just want to share with you before we can make some end with this, because I don't want to make it too long for this interaction. Is that they are focusing these papers on research, to get the research scholars or whatever, but then we can extract that as to bring about deductively, because we have a lot of logics in our brain. We can use our logic plus their logic and combine in combinations, and we can come up with our own logic, and it's called deduction. Okay, and so this is what literature review is all about. And we use the compositions, combinations of all these literatures and plus our own logics and put into a perspective, right? Put into a perspective that is meaningful to us. And I give an example that is the competency for digital era. Is your company's in the descriptive analytic stage, or a diagnostic stage, or predictive stage, or prescriptive stage, right? So this is a very, very important. Okay, so we will stop in, that papers. Okay, and so thank you very much for listening, and I hope that this studying literature, studying business methodology, business research methodology is not necessary to go through the regular textbook. You can really look at the articles and interact with it slowly, and then have a dialogue and interaction, and that would give you a clear understanding and an in-depth understanding. Okay.